Hi guys, I don't know if anyone is here yet, but I figured I would bring some news, so while I'm waiting for some people to come in. Hey Zoe! Seems to be a little bit, can you hear me okay, Zoe? I don't know if you can hear me. Oh, good. Okay. Awesome. So, while I'm waiting for a few more people to filter in, as you can see, everything is an absolute shambles. Like, completely. I had, after the 100 subs giveaway, I had one of my fish pass away. She was kind of older, but she had no visible signs of anything. And then as I was doing some feeding, I noticed that one of my adult breeding males was looking like he has velvet. And that, to me, in my personal opinion, velvet is absolutely the worst thing to have in a fish room, especially for beta. I don't know if any of you, thank you. I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with velvet before, but through most of my time fish keeping, I mean, I've been away from the fish world for a long, long time. I've come back to the fish world last year, and I started keeping beta and researching and, delving very, very deep into the hobby, especially for beta. Velvet on beta is probably, like I said, in my opinion, is absolutely the worst thing and most devastating thing to get in a fish room of beta. And here is one of the major reasons why. Beta pattern and coloration and the variance in all the different, it's just never ending. Like the color patterns on beta are never ending from, your regular cellophanes. You have cellophanes, you have kois, you have marbles, you have galaxies, you have metallics, you have, it's just never, the color variations is never ending. And that is one of the biggest reasons that I love them. Like, I absolutely love beta. I love breeding them. I love seeing, the colors and the patterns. However, when it comes to something like velvet and you get new fish come in and you quarantine and you don't even notice it, especially if you've got metallics. Velvet is extremely hard to diagnose because it's extremely difficult to see. Velvet is also known as rust disease. It's commonly referred to. Gold dust disease is another name that it goes by. And that is the typical characteristic that if you visibly can see it, it looks like gold dust. Hi guys, thank you for everyone that's just joining in here. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. So, being with the color patterns and the variations with velvet, with the beta, it becomes increasingly difficult to actually even spot velvet in the first place. So during my going through and giving everyone water changes and feeding everyone, I noticed some gold speckles on one of my adult males. So now my entire fish room is completely on lockdown. I am in the process of absolutely tearing it apart. I will not accept any fish coming in, and I will not be shipping anybody out. The winner of the contest, I actually already spoke to him and let him know what was happening, because it's irresponsible to have something such as velvet that is extremely difficult to diagnose, and then on top of it, it is also fatal. If you don't catch it and you don't treat it correctly, it will come back and it will kill your fish. Absolutely every single time. If you don't spot it, the damage that it can do to the gill membranes on the beta is basically irreversible. It is not a nice disease to get, and it's not easy to get rid of. So I don't know how bad the glare is. On my end, it looks really bad. The glare on the fry rack here. So as you can see, everybody is like at half water right now. And I mean, when I say, I'm gonna actually turn around and I'm gonna turn you guys around so you can see it better. Oh, excuse my finger in there. So everybody is at like half water right now. And I got down to here. Nope, this one. I got down to this line here. And then this row here, I haven't quite got to these guys just yet. These guys are all going through a 50% water change right now. Because obviously they're already being treated. Now, the guy that I spotted it on, I haven't really seen it on anybody else, is this cutie right here. And I'm hoping that the camera is gonna focus in on him, because if you look in the black portion of his scales, very, very closely, you can see very, very fine, what looks like little gold specks. I don't know how well the camera is actually picking it up. On my end, I can see it, but I know what I'm looking for. So he has, I'm gonna leave it there for a little while because he's not a very happy fish right now. I really hope that you guys can see this. Especially along like behind his head, across his back. You can't really see it so much in his fins, but certainly up the back of his head and across the, the top of him there, that you can see it pretty well. Now, when it comes to treating velvet, if the medication that you choose to use, I use malachite green. A fair warning with malachite green, it's an extremely strong medication. Absolutely do your research into the medication before you use any medication and dosing, because the medication itself can also kill the fish. Now, another thing that you can do in order to help your fish be comfortable is you can actually add, you can pre-dose the water with the aquarium salt, and that'll just help, help the fish build back his slime coat and, protect him from any bacteria that might decide that it's going to try and get in to him or into, the bacteria is opportunistic, and they will wait for the fish to, that actually looks like he might have a little bit of a sore going on the back of his tail too. I don't know if you can see it. You can see the gold dust pretty well on him right now, except for my fingers are in the camera. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you can see it particularly well. There you go. But as you can see, he is absolutely covered. And he looks like he's got a little bit of a sore going on there. So he is the reason that absolutely everybody in this fish room is completely locked down. Now, medicating the water, the way the medication works is basically because of the life cycle of velvet. If anyone here has had ick in their fish room, which is also another very, very common fish room sickness, which is usually brought in by new fish, there's a particular life cycle as to how the bacteria actually, sorry, not bacteria, it's a parasite, I apologize. Hamsters, I don't know much about hamsters. I don't like them. Sorry. But the life cycle of ick and velvet is very, very similar. There's, there's basically like 4 different life stages where they go through, where the parasite is on the fish, and then it drops off the fish, and it multiplies in the water, and then it basically like it like erupts into like these little swimming, and it's at this swimming stage when it's swimming its way back up to a host. That's the only point in its life cycle that it can be killed. I mean, you can help the fish create the barrier against velvet, but velvet's gonna take over really, really fast. Velvet is such a horrible thing. It really is just not a nice illness to have in a fish room. So, and I wanted to share it with everyone because I just feel like we need to support everybody, and these things do happen. So I hope that being able to see my personal fish that does have velvet, and me explaining to you, what it looks like, the treatments that I use. Another important thing to note about velvet is actually photosynthesis. It relies on light, photosynthesis. And a good way of treating it is to actually completely block out all of the light from the tank. Unfortunately, because where my basement has windows that allow a lot of natural light, and I can't really hang a blanket or anything from this in order to cover it completely from a light source. But I don't mess around with velvet at all because it can cause too much damage too fast, and it can spread way too fast. I don't see anybody else up here right now that is showing signs of velvet. Some of the symptoms to look out for is not eating, rapid breathing, very lethargic, doesn't show any interest in anything, clamped fins. And this will bring me back to something that I said way back when I first came to YouTube, and that is know your fish. Get to learn the little habits and the little quirks that your fish has. And then you'll learn the patterns, and you'll know when your fish is not acting his or herself. And you'll be able to diagnose or realize that something is wrong way quicker than someone who, just throws a couple of pellets of food in twice a day and leaves them. I spend a lot of time in my fish room. I really enjoy being with my fish. I love interacting with them. I love making sure that everybody is healthy, happy, clean. And so Velvet is horrible. What is your take on Velvet? And hi, Bob. It is just the worst thing. But I really hope that this, like I said, this is not something that I'm really going into any like major depth with. I will do like a in-depth video about velvet. If anyone would be interested in that, that would be something that I will gladly do. Because I just feel like, you know, knowledge that I know, that I can share, and someone can learn from me is invaluable. Like, without a lot of the people in the community, I know that there's a lot of people that probably wouldn't be in the community, you know, without having the knowledge readily available and type it into Google, you know, see whose videos come up, who can give you the best insights into velvet. But it's definitely absolutely devastating. Highly, highly contagious, will sweep through your fish room in a heartbeat, and before you know it, you will have fish just passing on you left, right, and center if you don't catch it quick. So I hope that me sharing just that little bit of footage of, you know, this is the fish, this is where you need to look, that is how it looks, this is how the fish acts. And definitely when it comes to velvet, I recommend making sure that whatever treatment it is that you use, it absolutely has to be something that states that it will treat. Let me see here. I want to show you the exact word. Where is it? Because let me see if it'll actually focus. I don't know if it'll focus. Is it even focusing? It's not, is it? Okay, so I think it's called, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, so I do apologize for that, but it's Odinium. And I really wish this thing would focus on it. Is it focusing in? Because I don't see if it is. But basically, malachite green from Cordon is my go-to. This is what will treat velvet. And one of the only things I think, hey Bam, one of the biggest things I think to point out with this is absolutely do your research into it. Make sure that you're dosing correctly, because not only will velvet kill your fish, this stuff will kill your fish. If you don't use it correctly and dose your water properly or change your water properly, you will accidentally overdose your fish. So definitely, if you suspect velvet, definitely do your research into what you're using, and reach out in the community. Reach out to someone and be like, hey, can you have a look at the fish for me and tell me if you think it's velvet? And get really good clear pictures and send them. I mean, if you want to send them to me, that's fine. I don't mind. If I can help you out in any way, shape, or form, I will. But definitely keep the water clean, keep them nice and warm, make sure that they're eating. And if they're not eating, you need to take action like yesterday. That's probably about the best way I can put it. When it comes to velvet, I really get a major sense of urgency, because once you visibly see it on the fish, that means it's actually been there a while. Because it usually, when velvet is in the water, it actually attacks the gills first, and that's where it does the most of its damage. And another thing to notice is if you notice your fish is like almost acting like it's irritated and like brushing against the ornaments in the fish tanks, or just like smashing itself into the side of the glass, and it's like a real quick flick action that they do, and it's called flashing. That's when you need to be like, uh-oh, this is not looking good, and look for either white spots. If it's white spots, it's most likely ick. If you do not see any visible spots, but the fish is flashing, I would suspect velvet straight off the bat. And again, you treating your fish however you want to treat your fish is completely up to you. I'm not telling you that you have to use this medication. I am not, obviously, I'm not sponsored by anyone. This is just what I use. This is my personal preference. This stuff is very, very strong. And if you don't respect the way that you have to treat your fish with this particular medicine, unfortunately, the medicine itself will also kill the fish. Velvet is also extremely stressful on your fish. And constant water changes on your fish is another thing that stresses them out too. So definitely be safe. No, sorry, quarantine your fish. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, can I just quarantine for 2 weeks? I mean, you can. I wouldn't. Quarantine for me is minimum a month, and 6 weeks is probably absolutely optimal, because if you have 2 weeks go by and you let, say, I don't know, your new set of something loose in your tank, and they're covered in velvet and you can't see it, well, guess what? Now your entire community tank of however many fish you have is also going to be infected. And if you have shrimp, and I think it's, if I remember correctly, I believe there's some of the little catfish, it might be cories, I'm not 100% sure, and loaches, scaleless fish, I know that they're particularly sensitive. Some of these medications actually have copper in them, which is another thing that you got to watch out for, especially because I know a lot of the beta community keep shrimp also. And if I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, I think copper is not a very good thing for shrimp or snails. I don't know much about them, to be 100% honest with you, so don't completely quote me on that for that kind of information. If you do keep shrimp or snails, or even scaleless fish like loaches or some of the little catfish, absolutely reach out to somebody who keeps them. I don't keep them. I have no idea about them. I think they're completely cool. I really do want some, but I don't know anything about them right now. But I know that a lot of these medications do not like, shrimp and snails definitely do not like them. Actually, it actually says it on here. It says it can interfere with the biological filtration. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And care should be taken with sensitive fish, dwarf cichlids, gouramis, life bearers, barbs. Malachite green can permanently color the silicone sealant in aquariums. If stress develops, remove fish to another untreated aquarium, or make an immediate partial or complete water change and replace carbon filter. Now, that's something else. Carbon will remove medicine from your filtration system too, if I'm 100% correct, which I believe I am when it comes to carbon filtration. Excuse me. Definitely, if you are treating a tank that has carbon filtration, remove the carbon. And then once your course of treatment is done, which for this is usually about 4 days, 4 or 5 days, I always let it go an extra day, just because I want to make sure that I'm absolutely 100% clear of it, and I want to make sure that there's nothing left in the water column that can possibly make its way back up to the fish and reinfect the fish. Because then you've got to do another round of treatment and, prolong it even longer. Excuse me. Now, if you're treating particularly small fry, do it with extreme caution. I would not do full dosage. When it comes to fry, I would rather dose them for longer. So like doubling the medication time. So say it's 4 days, I'd rather dose for 8 days at like half, because they're so little and they're so sensitive to even the most minute of changes. I definitely don't recommend giving full doses unless it's absolutely necessary, and expect that you will lose some of the fry. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I haven't treated the life bearers just because I haven't seen it on them yet. They have no contact with anybody else. They're in their tank, they're doing their thing, and I'm very hesitant because, again, this is a medication that you have to really watch who you treat. I might actually have to find a different medication that would be suitable for the life bearers, just to be absolutely safe that they do not have it. Also, if you use a net in your fish room and you discover that you have velvet in your fish room, I would let that soak in some of your malachite green and then let it air dry overnight. And I mean, make sure it's completely dry, because even the most microscopic drip of water can reinfect your entire fish room again. If you know, you can also bleach, use a little bit of bleach. I personally don't like using bleach, just because I'm never 100% sure where that threshold is as to where it can cause problems within the fish room. I try and stay away from chemicals as much as I possibly can, and I only ever implement them when it's absolutely necessary. If good old aquarium salt doesn't fix it, and clean water doesn't fix it, then I have to reach for something else. But velvet is something that I never take lightly, and neither should anybody else that's in this. And I know that there's some people out there that have a whole lot more knowledge on the, you know, on treating certain fish, certain species, and, you know, what they do. And, you know, everyone has their own ways of treating, and everyone has their own ways and their own methods. And there's no wrong or right way to do it, as long as the end result is the same and your fish are healthy and happy. I'm all for, you know, any method that you put. And if my method doesn't work for me, then I will go and try and find out what other methods there are in order for me to treat it. There are methods where they use, "Hi, how are you?" There are different methods where, you know, raising the temperature of the water speeds up the life cycle of the velvet or the ick, for instance. And I don't like that method, just because the fish is, with the treatment is stressful enough for them, and the fact that they're already sick, and then you're raising their temperature to like 84, 85 degrees, it puts a lot of stress on them. I mean, again, that's my personal take on it, and I'm not saying don't do it. Especially when, you know, you can speed up the life cycle, you can kill it off a lot quicker. Velvet. So that is definitely something you can try when it comes to treating for velvet. But there are so many different ways, and everyone does things slightly differently. So, but I honestly, I hope that little bit of information that I have shared, and it's, you know, it can happen to anyone. Anyone can have velvet sneak its way into your fish room through a new fish, and you can accidentally cross-contaminate. It's so easy to do. And I know that there's many fish keepers out there that have accidentally, you know, either pulled someone out of quarantine a little bit too soon, or it's come in and been completely undetected. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on the fish. It can be on your ornaments, it can be in your substrate, it can be in your filters. So if you decide, well, that filter, you're gonna swap that one out and start up a new tank with that filter because it's already, you know, you've already had it running for a couple of months, and you move it into another tank, well, guess what? Now you just infected that tank too. And it's the simplest little thing, the simplest little mistake that can literally have it run through your fish room like wildfire. So, but yeah, I think to be 100% honest, I think I'm gonna leave it there for tonight. Thank you everyone that actually stopped in and stayed with me, and thank you for the likes. I really appreciate that too. And I will definitely keep you guys updated as to my progress and how everyone is doing. As you can see, everyone's clean and for the most part pretty happy. They're a little sleepy, but they're happy for the most part, apart from the one guy, bless him, he's not very happy at all. But everybody else seems to be doing fine. Like I said, I haven't seen any signs of it on anybody else. And thank you for staying with us, Blue. I really appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, if you do need to reach out to me, by all means, you're more than welcome to. If I can't help you, I will absolutely definitely put you in the right direction as to somebody who can help you. I know quite a lot of people in the fish community, some very, very awesome keepers of various different species, not just beta, because velvet doesn't just affect beta, although it's very common. Thank you. It was just a talk about velvet and how destructive it can be in your fish room. So I appreciate you guys for stopping in. But yeah, so I will definitely keep you guys updated. If you want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to. If you want to find me on Instagram, Facebook, She's Beta, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Also, if you want to reach out. I'm also on the aminos. I don't know if anyone actually uses the aminos, but I'm on beta spawns. That is the amino that I frequent pretty much every day. A lot of really, really good beta breeders there, and a wealth of information. And I will do a more in-depth video about velvet and everything. Everything that you really need to know when it comes to velvet. Because when you're on a live stream, it's easy to get distracted by the goldfish. They're doing their thing over there and I keep looking at them, or seeing these guys swimming around and trying to interact with everyone that's in here also. So again, thank you. I really appreciate you guys coming in. I appreciate your support. Until next time, take care, guys.